Right, let's go to Sydney now and bring in Sky News political editor Andrew Clennell for his analysis of the big speech today. Look, what's your takeout? We've seen some very positive reactions there from business and the unions, Sally McManus, but Labor, Tanya Plibersek, straight out there with the job faker line, not job maker, as the Prime Minister calls it. You're a Canberra insider. What do you rate his chances of success?
Well, he seems very confident, Peter. He seems very confident. I think the JOBKEEPER process, negotiating with Sally McManus and the unions, and with Greg Combet in there, the former Labor minister and former union boss, as the go-between, has helped that confidence. I think the National Cabinet process has helped that confidence, where he's been able to achieve a lot in terms of his negotiating skills, the PM. And yes, I mean, I think you mentioned the Senate before. That's where it will... the rubber will hit the road at the end of the year, by the sound of things, if they want the working groups reporting by then. And then it will be more difficult for Labor to oppose things that the ACTU are signing off on. So I think that's the tactic here. And I guess a lot of these speeches with the PM, some of their themes seem a bit motherhood. There's a few slogans involved. But there was real passion there today and a determination to change things up. He doesn't have much choice. He just can't have unemployment where it's at without throwing absolutely everything at it before the next election.
And look, I'd say this to the left and right, both sides of politics. They should not waste this crisis. And I think the Australian public, having worked so hard to get through the health aspects of it, don't want them to waste it either. If there's a chance to reset the economy, right around the world, other economies will be doing this. They'll come out of this more competitive. If they're smart, they will open up, they will change the way they do things. So we can't expect, normal to be good enough coming out of this, particularly for us, particularly our current relationship with China. I've got to go to more from Anastasia Palaszczuk. Look, it's almost every day that we get a press conference from the Queensland Premier. She is facing, tourism industry say, a $5 billion hit if those borders stay closed. A Federal Trade, Tourism and Investment Minister, Simon Birmingham, he's warned the closures are hurting Queenslanders.
Queenslanders have the most at stake and the most to lose. If these border restrictions stay in place too long, it will be businesses in Queensland and jobs in Queensland that will suffer. Things have improved greatly from where they were a couple of months ago when these restrictions were put in place. And as long as each of the steps of opening up within states can be done safely, then we should see the step taken to open up across states as well.
All right, Andrew, you give it to me here. How much of this is about the reality of the issue in Queensland, and how much of this is about how she thinks it's all going to play out for her at the ballot box in October? It's
very much poll-driven. And a lot of the actions of the states are, as indeed the Commonwealth these days half the time are. I mean, basically you have people behind the two-way mirror, 10 people in a marginal seat determining policy half the time these days. And I think that it's clear that the polling is showing in Queensland that at the moment people are still concerned about health and the risk from southerners, even though there are very, very few cases at the moment. And borders were open when there were far more cases, and there could be long-term damage. So I think October state election, if it was an election year, you might see a different approach. But regardless, I would have thought by the end of the month you'll see a different stance from Anastasia Palaszczuk. She's coming under enormous pressure. She showed some of that today.
Just a quick comment. I want to go on to an issue in relation to Hong Kong, but the PM was asked about all the other things on the government's plate before this virus hit, and there were plenty of them. Let's have a listen.
Do you still aspire to have an Indigenous recognition referendum next year? And what's your timetable now on the religious freedom legislation and the anti-corruption body?
Well, we haven't had the opportunity to revisit those latter 2 points because of the crisis, and it's not something the Cabinet has considered now for some time. When it comes to the Indigenous recognition, well, the Minister for Indigenous Australians has continued to conduct his process, and the timetable for that will depend on when and if that sort of consensus is able to be achieved for it to be successful.
All right, let's put two of those measures to one side. Let's talk about the Indigenous referendum. Ken Wyatt, the Minister, he has said repeatedly it will happen in this term. Prime Minister really pushed it off today, didn't he?
Yes, well, he has said it to many people, many journalists, including me, pre-COVID, but I think the Prime Minister's just been preoccupied. I mean, the Prime Minister makes the call on these things. There were some signs there could be some party room issues with that issue. I think he has just pushed these sorts of things to one side, and who could blame him to some extent, given the pandemic? As the months go on and hopefully the cases stay low, he'll have to refocus on some of these things, but yes, there is a danger they'll get swept by the wayside. Even in his press conferences, the Prime Minister was refusing for quite a while there to take non-COVID questions. So I think he didn't look too happy with that question. He is pretty singular in his focus at the moment.
Well, a lot of political capital, particularly with Conservatives, on the Indigenous one, and I don't think the groundwork's being done. So I think he wouldn't mind the excuse to sort of step away from that a little bit. We'll see how it all goes. Andrew Clennell, thanks for your time.
Thank you.